Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Ellen here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 2 of What If Saitama Was in MHA. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So, we begin. Midoriya felt dazed and confused. One moment ago, he was being assaulted by a villain made out of slime. The next, he was being attacked by a crab mutant. Both times, he saw the same blurry image of a bald man holding out his arm in a punching motion, and his assailant suddenly being knocked out. Midoriya looked away from the bald man and looked down at his body. He was battered, bruised, and broken. His back was leaned up against the tree, and the man's voice was fading in and out as the world started slipping away. As Midoriya succumbed to the darkness, he found himself in a black abyss. He saw the events of his life presented as windows all around him, illuminating the infinite space. With a sigh, he sat down in front of the first window, which showed memories of his childhood. The light illuminated brightly, and Midoriya's life flashed before his eyes. It started at a young age, an unrealistic dream of being at the top. The possibility of having a quirk or any sort of power was taken away by the chances of genetics. He tried so hard. He was ridiculed, bullied, and told to die because he had nothing but a will to help people. He got called Deku because he was seen as useless. A cruel nickname. Izuku Midoriya worked harder than anyone in his school, possibly even in the world, to be a hero. When he was young, he tried to stop his so-called friend Bakugo from bullying another kid who couldn't defend himself. Izuku tried to defend the boy, but all he was met with was verbal and physical degrading from Bakugo and the other students.
Stupid Deku, trying to play hero again without a quirk.
Those words kept playing in his head growing up. He heard his mother's shaking voice. "I'm sorry, Izuku!" The sensation of her tight hug against his numb body was uncomforting and empty. He never gave up, but all he was met with was doubt and degradation. He saw himself growing up. He was timid and unconfrontational. He was at the top of his class in his studies, but those abilities didn't matter. He wanted to be a hero. He felt it calling in his heart. His heart was beating. A slow thumping was in his ears. It was getting faster and louder. "Ah!" Midoriya spat suddenly, shooting up from a hospital bed. His heart was racing and his breath was ragged. He looked around at the unfamiliar setting and determined that he was in some sort of hospital. He saw a note plastered on the bedside table next to him. It read, "Hey kid, I found you unconscious. I dropped you off at a friend's clinic." The note wasn't signed, but Midoriya knew exactly who wrote it. The strange bald man who had saved him twice in one day. The sound of a door opening drew Midoriya out of his thoughts. A petite woman in a nurse's outfit walked in, supporting her weight with a large syringe-like cane.
"Oh, you're awake,"
the woman said enthusiastically.
"When you came in, you weren't looking too good."
"Thank you for helping me, but who are you? And where am I?" Midoriya replied hesitantly. The woman walked over to Midoriya's bed and introduced herself.
"I am Recovery Girl, and you, Sonny, are at UA High's nurse's office."
Midoriya was shocked. He was at his dream school? His mouth hung agape, and the woman took it as a cue to keep talking.
"Well, everything seems to be all healed up now. I'll contact your guardians to pick you up."
Before Recovery Girl exited the room, Midoriya spoke up. Wait. Before you go, can I ask you for something?" After being discharged from the nurse's office, Midoriya was fiddling with the number Recovery Girl had given him. After running into that man 2 times, he didn't want to press his luck to try and find him again for the 3rd time. He wanted to know who he was, and most importantly, he wanted to know how he could be like him. Midoriya texted the number, and surprisingly, he received an immediate text back. After a few texts back and forth, Midoriya had scheduled a meeting with the man. His name was Saitama, and he asked Midoriya to meet him at Takoba Municipal Beach Park. When Midoriya arrived at the location, he was shocked to see the amount of litter it had accumulated. He knew that the beach was a known dumping site, but seeing it up close was intense. A sudden tap on his shoulder startled Midoriya, and he turned around to see the same bald man in an Opie hoodie that saved him. Midoriya found it odd that the man had multiple pairs of Opie-themed clothing, but he decided that it wasn't important enough to think about. "So, kid, what do you want to talk about?" Midoriya bowed in front of the man and gave him a heartfelt thank you. He thanked him for saving him against the slime villain, he thanked him for saving him against the crab villain, and he thanked him for meeting with him. After getting that out of the way, Midoriya revealed what his intentions were with meeting Saitama. "When I first saw you, I was scared and confused, but you saved me." Midoriya looked up to meet the man's eyes as he continued. "You have such a strong quirk that's very similar to All Might's, and I wanted to ask you, Can I be a hero even though I'm quirkless? I'm quirkless, the man said, matter-of-factly. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. With the services Skillshare provides, you can get access to many in-depth tutorial videos on basically anything you want to learn. Each class that they have is bound to help you with your creative endeavors. Do you want to learn how to make videos like this one? Want to learn how to write scripts or edit audio? Skillshare has you covered. And with our link, you can have a 14-day free trial. So what are you waiting for? Click the link now and get 14 days worth of classes free. Link in the description below. Midoriya's mouth hung agape, and he stared at the bald man. Midoriya sputtered in shock. What? But that's impossible! I saw you punch, and then the villains were... Huh? Saitama tilted his head to the side in confusion. He didn't understand how this information was too complicated to understand. Finally, Midoriya asked an exasperated, How? You want to be a hero, huh? Saitama asked. Midoriya nodded his head adamantly, and Saitama smiled to himself. The kid reminded him of how he was a couple of years back. Saitama's face suddenly became serious, and it sent chills down Midoriya's spine. He raised his voice as his tone and inflection suddenly sounded more emotional than Midoriya's ever heard it. Listen, kid. You have to stick to this intense training regimen, no matter how difficult it gets. After seeing Midoriya take out his notebook and start scribbling in it, Saitama continued. 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, and a 10-kilometer run, and 100 squats. Do it every single day! Midoriya dropped his pencil and was staring at the bald man. Saitama looked extremely serious, but Midoriya couldn't believe that was all it took. Having power on the same level as All Might took a basic workout routine? The man continued despite Midoriya's flabbergasted expression. Never use air conditioning in the summer or heat in the winter so that you can strengthen your mind. And of course, make sure you eat 3 meals daily. Just a banana in the morning is fine. You're going to feel like you want to be dead, but tough it out and keep going. After about a year and a half in, my body started changing. I was bald, but I became stronger. In other words, you have to train like hell until your hair falls out. That's the only way to become truly strong. The bald man stood with a small smile on his face. Midoriya started shaking until he finally yelled, You are so full of crap! I asked you a genuine question and all you're giving me are jokes? The man's expression fell and slowly turned to anger until he suddenly yelled back, You're the one who asked me and now you're calling my advice crap? The two yelled at each other back and forth, but eventually they tired each other out. Feeling deflated, Midoriya sighed and said, You're telling the truth, aren't you? You're quirkless and your power is completely from the training you did. Saitama affirmed, and Midoriya suddenly felt invigorated. He clenched his fists and looked at Saitama with determination. I want to be your student. I want to know how to become strong, just like you. Saitama smiled and accepted the boy's request. He explained that the boy's training would be much more intense than his training was. Midoriya would complete the exercise routine while also cleaning up the polluted beach. Midoriya was unwavering and agreed to follow through on the man's training schedule. He had 10 months until the UA entrance exam, and he only had one chance to prove himself. The next day, Midoriya barely made it to school after taking hours to finish all of Saitama's workout that morning. He was belittled as usual, but was too tired to react like he usually did. Instead of looking sad at what was being said to him, he kept a straight face while concentrating on his work. At the end of the school day, Izuku struggled to get out of his seat because of how sore he was. His legs gave out, causing him to fall in front of his class, and they laughed at him. Midoriya struggled to get up, but when he did, he was immediately pushed back down by Bakugo. Instead of reacting, he just got back up and walked out of the class, uncharacteristically silent. I guess he finally gave up, one kid joked, but Bakugo looked off at Izuku, feeling like something was off. Over the next few months, Midoriya kept on doing his morning training. He often coughed up blood in the bathroom, and his joints made weird clicking noises whenever he pushed himself, but he kept on going. At school, he eventually went from getting bullied to getting largely ignored. His classmates gave up on teasing him, and he just stopped reacting. The only person who still tried was Bakugo. Even when Midoriya wasn't giving any reaction, the blonde still went out of his way to prove his superiority. After 5 months of training and 5 months more until the UA entrance exam, the workout went from taking several hours to complete to a little over an hour. This meant that he had more time to focus on the beach cleanup. The beach was almost halfway cleaned as well, and progress was improving exponentially. Saitama was a surprisingly good mentor. His advice pushed Midoriya beyond his limits and helped him get back up whenever he was emotionally and physically exhausted. "It's about drive, it's about power," Saitama would repeat. "We stay hungry, we devour." This mantra kept Midoriya going. A few more months passed and the UA entrance exam was almost a month away, so Saitama decided that it was time for Midoriya to shadow him during his work as a vigilante. The bald man always called himself a hero for fun, but he never bothered to get an official license, so he was technically breaking the law. Saitama didn't care about the logistics. It was the first time Midoriya saw Saitama in his hero costume. It was a rubbery yellow suit with red gloves and boots. He also had a white cape draped across his shoulders. Midoriya held his tongue about his mentor's fashion choices. Midoriya chose to wear one of his All Might hoodies with some sweatpants, his signature red shoes, black gloves, and a medical mask to cover his face. Izuku hopped from building to building, trying to keep up with Saitama's immense speed as they surveyed for some crime. Saitama stopped suddenly, and Midoriya rammed right into his back. Midoriya scooted closer to the edge of the building that his mentor was looking at, and he saw a blonde teenage girl. It looked like she was hiding from someone. The two waited to see what she was doing, not wanting to jump to conclusions. Midoriya focused on her face and saw something red around her mouth. "Blood?" Midoriya whispered to his mentor. The girl looked around, and she started walking toward a dumpster. She pulled out a knife and sliced open one of the bags. A body slid out of it. Midoriya felt like vomiting. Saitama jumped off of the building, and Midoriya followed, landing behind the girl. She turned around and smiled at the pair, showing her sharp teeth. She stared at Midoriya as she said,
"Hey, you're pretty cute. Can I drink your blood?"
She laughed as she lunged at Izuku with a knife, but Saitama reached out an arm to block the attack. The knife bent against Saitama's forearm like he was made out of steel.
"You broke my favorite knife, you meanie!"
she pouted, pulling out another one. Saitama stood behind Midoriya and said, "Go, kid. This one should be easy." Midoriya readied his stance and prepared for the girl to strike. She lunged and Midoriya dodged repeatedly. Her attacks were sporadic and unpredictable. Midoriya was struggling to find an opening. "There!" Midoriya swiftly grabbed the girl's wrist that had the knife and twisted it in a way that caused her to drop it. He maneuvered her hands behind her back and pinned her down to the floor. "Good job, kid. That was pretty good for your first villain," Saitama congratulated. Saitama gave the girl a swift chop on the neck and she fell unconscious. Saitama restrained her hands and picked her up. They dropped her off at the police station with a note notifying the police about the dead body's location. Another notable day while shadowing Saitama was when they stopped a bank robbery. The large man had a bird mask on his face and appeared to have a vitality-stealing quirk. The hero Fat Gum was struggling against him, and he kept having his energy drained. Saitama gave Midoriya the thumbs up to go in on his own. Midoriya jumped off of the building and used the momentum of his fall to pack an extra punch on the villain. With a single strike, the villain that was about 3 times as large as him was knocked out. That was a first. As the days went by, each piece of trash at the beach felt lighter and lighter. One day he lifted a refrigerator and felt like he wasn't lifting anything. It was as if the natural limit of human strength broke. His entire routine could be done in only minutes. His 10-kilometer run went by in a flash as he was running at speeds he never knew the quirkless body could reach. He was superhuman, more powerful than even someone with a strength-enhancing quirk. Midoriya smiled as he realized that Saitama's training had worked. It was the day of the UA entrance exam when Midoriya stood atop the last pile of trash on Takaba Municipal Beach Park. He stared at the sunset, reminiscing about the last 10 months. He remembered the pain, the depression, and the uncertainty that he felt, but now he felt confident. Saitama approached Midoriya with a smile. "Good job, kid. This place looks great." Saitama felt strangely emotional. It hasn't even been a year, yet he felt so connected to this kid. He patted Midoriya on the back. "You should start heading out now. The exam starts in an hour." Midoriya started running off, but he stopped and came back. He hugged Saitama. The bald man was caught off guard, but found himself smiling as he returned it. The kid was like a son to him. Saitama was like a father figure to Midoriya, too. The bald man ruffled Midoriya's fluffy green hair as he wished him good luck. Saitama looked out at the beach and sighed to himself. Training and watching Midoriya's progress made him realize that it wasn't too late for him to fulfill his dream. He nodded in affirmation as he made his choice. He was going to get his hero license too. But then, a sudden realization hit Saitama like a truck as he screamed in despair. Why did the kid get to keep his hair but I didn't? Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has got you covered. Our We the Celestials My Hero Academia and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have a great day.